you're all set. Let's bring the meeting to order. That says 7:04. 7:04, okay. Nick, thank you for sending out the agenda. We have several items to discuss tonight, old business and new business. Under old business, we have item 1, wetland discussion. I'd like to know if the board,
Motion, we put item 1, old business, until at the end of the meeting.
thank you, and seconded. Pete, did you catch, that was about, did you hear what he said?
I'm sorry.
So he was asking that he made a motion to put the discussion about wetlands, which is number 1 on the agenda, till later, so we can get through the more meaty and substantive discussion. So, and it was seconded, so any more discussion on that? All those in favor? All in favor, none opposed. We'll discuss that at another time. And for old business and new business, how does the board feel about approaching this tonight? Would you like to carry on with the discussion for the commercial review application that's in front of us first? And are you Mr. Redmond?
I am.
So I just want to make sure we're talking about this because it is rather a little bit lengthy. It'll take a little while to get through it, if you don't mind.
You guys mind?
Would you want to make a motion then?
I make a motion, we move to new business and
Then go back.
return to old business.
Are you folks okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, are you okay with that? So we've got a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any more discussion? So people are going to handle this one. All those in favor? None opposed, all in favor. So, Mr. Redmond, thank you for your time tonight. We have, this is a shoreline zoning application. Does everybody have a copy of that? Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. So this is,
What's that?
are you okay?
Yes.
Oh.
Gave my only copy to them.
So this is a application 4914. This particular property is found on map 40, lot 9. Mr. Redmond is here from Waterville. Looks like the idea is you want to tear down and replace a small cabin near the rear of the property. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Updated drawings, and this is on Great Pond. Do you mind just refreshing my memory where this is?
The address location?
Yeah, where?
Yeah, it's off the Snug Harbor Road, the Police and Shore Road,
Okay.
for Route 8.
Snug Harbor, so you get down
Yeah.
to Snug Harbor and then,
Stay left.
okay, got it. And a general question, is the lot hilly? Is it flat?
It's a gentle slope, but it is a slope.
Gentle slope
And
towards the lake?
towards the lake. And my grandfather years ago built retaining walls, and so, yeah, we have some pictures too, yeah. It's not steep, but it's definitely a slope, and there are retaining walls, so there's not a lot of space where water's running free. And some vegetation.
Thank you.
We got a map of the I wanna get, I'm trying to picture my mind where it is. So, we got a map of the area.
Snug Harbor is right off the main by the dam. Take a left, go across the field, go down in there.
Okay, yeah, so you go down, you walk the road, right? You
Yeah.
veer right or you
Stay
go
left. Stay left.
You veer to the left, right?
Down, right
Who
down
are
the
some of your
bottom.
neighbors? Okay.
Excuse me?
Who are some of your neighbors?
Chip Bessie on one side, Camilla Bessie Thompson on the other side, Dick Dennis,
Okay.
a couple doors out.
So you're right at the end of the road.
As the road turns,
Right.
when the road takes the turn along the lake,
Yeah.
we are right at the turn, and then Chip Bessie is to our right, and then his sister Camilla Thompson is
Oh,
to
okay.
the left.
Okay.
Earl and Sue Bessie's old place.
Okay, I understand what that is, yeah,
Mhm.
right. And you're pretty much the one that hasn't really done anything for years, you know,
That is correct.
Alright, I got you.
Okey-dokes. So, the proposed building, if I'm reading the updated drawing correctly, is the one that's proposed to be 12 feet by 18 feet, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And then, is that the math calculation on the right, which is 216 square feet?
Correct.
And that lot size is 2 acres?
I think so, including that he has a parcel of land, that goes up to the fork and then down toward the Colby line. And then comes in behind Chip Bessie's place. So yeah, I think that was combined with that lot, it's 2 acres. I believe.
I had a question. On the proposed building, it's right now, it's, the footprint is what?
The footprint is 18 by 10.
18 by 10.
And I'm proposing to add 2 feet off the back, on the back of it toward the road.
Okay, so,
It's gonna be 31 square feet.
so, all right, so right now it's 18 by 10, right? And do you want to increase the footprint or?
Yes, by 2 feet, on the back, so
On the back.
It'd be 18 to 36,
Okay,
36 square feet.
okay, so you're not going to the front, you're not
No.
going to the side, you're going
No.
back? We're going back.
Wait,
Right. Right. And I just want to make sure you're aware of the fact, you could probably, if you wanted to put a second story on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so back, how many feet from the lake?
the front of the house is 84 feet, by my measurement. My dad did a drawing
Yeah.
25 years ago that measured it as 100, but I don't know how far, I don't know how
On the
that far
proposed
apart on
building,
it, but yeah, I got 84 feet.
Okay, alright. Thank you.
And I was asking about lot size, because I was interested in just making sure we air out the idea of not having too much lot coverage, right? We could run some numbers, but I can't imagine that this would be approaching 20%, based on 2 acres. And these other structures seem relatively reasonably sized, so
Mhm.
I don't anticipate it, but.
Yeah. Down the left side, I did just a quick calculation of what's within 75 and what's within 100.
Oh, okay, that's what those numbers are
Yeah.
there.
Right, so the square footage within 100's up top, and the square footage within 75 is down.
Okay. And the
So
total,
the pond's down here.
that's a good question, and I believe that is correct. And the reason why I'm saying that,
House is up here.
right, and I'm also seeing the Gleason Drive up
Yep.
there. So if we had the total square footage based on the calculations, Mr. Redmond, that you provided,
1,279.2.
well, and then total, so he has,
Got it. He's got
12, oh, gotcha, okay.
this one, and this one, which is right here.
Yeah, and then
And
up
then the new
above.
one here, 198, for a total of 1278.2.
So that's nowhere near 20% coverage for the total lot, so we're good to go there.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
All right, down on the waterfront there, you got a small cabin and a deck. How old are those?
The deck's,
Grandfathering off.
right, yeah, the deck's been there, the deck was originally a patio, and it's had 2 rebuilds as a deck. The patio was there in the early 60s, the
Okay.
decks have been there since the 70s. The small cabin was built in 68.
And you're not proposing any activity with any of those structures, correct?
Not at this time. I want to pull that small cabin back off the lake a little bit It's, both these little small cabins were built within a couple of years of each other. Both were built on cedar posts. Those cedar posts are long gone. They've probably been on the sills have probably been on the ground longer than they were on the posts at this point. But the small cabin was built with a full stick, framing. Whereas this is a log cabin that's just, it's got a pair of, it's got two 2x4s around the top, a regular old floor sill plate, whatever you call it, floor plate, and then the logs are, intertwined and just nailed into those things, and that's it. So it's like this now, and rotted out. But I do, at some point, I'd like to pull that cabin, not do anything to it other than pull it back. Don't increase the size of it all. It's just a small sleeping cabin.
Okay.
No water, no sewer, no nothing. Just.
And so to be clear too, the application has a drawing, then we were provided with the updated drawing. And one difference that I can see is that you've indicated that the small tool shed that's also
Yes.
near the lake
Yes.
has been taken down.
That's been taken down, it's not coming back.
And you're saying no replace?
No
so
replacement.
It's too late.
Yeah, no, it's,
So just to air that out.
it did change the square footage a little bit, below 75 feet.
Okay. What other questions or do we have, comments do we have for the applicant or for each other for discussion?
Get down here, proposed storage.
Oh, proposed sewer. Okay, so I think I know what you're looking at. So Roger's looking at, there's a dotted line between
Yes.
the current,
Cabin and the septic.
so is that a line that does not exist?
That's a line that does not exist.
So who's gonna be the contractor?
Within,
Within
that'll be,
feet.
that's, as soon as I know what we can do here, we'll start finding that out. I don't know, I mean, we had, I'm not sure who installed it. I know it was installed at the same time that the building in front of it was lifted and put on a foundation. One of the Mushrows did that. I don't know if they also installed the septic. I was not even close to Maine at that time, we just moved here actually. So I will look for a contractor for that.
So I'm thinking your point would be if there's gonna be, some sort of digging or
Right.
excavation,
That's
not that it's deep, but
So
within,
that's one condition, contractor's name.
Okay.
that we would have to have a certified
Yep.
contractor
Yep.
working in the shoreline zone.
Okay.
And currently, the application does not have that information on it. So this is a condition that I'm sensing is going to be building for any movement on this. Did you have anything else
Just the rebel one,
about the roof runoff or
this
and
practice, management.
okay? And just to air it out a little bit, when you rebuild the shed back there, what you're talking about, what will the roof line be like for this shed?
At this point, the plan was to be the same as on there, which is just
A simple pitched roof?
simple pitch roof. The orientation is the ridge is parallel to the lake.
Got it.
So the gables are toward the sides of the property.
So water would drip off away from the lake, and also water would
Right.
drip towards the lake.
Right.
So
So then
what-
it's behind this retaining wall, which has got some vegetation on it. We're going to probably put a lot more vegetation.
Okay. So Roger's point of this, that he was getting at, that we would talk about with anybody proposing any structure, would be to control that roof runoff.
Right.
And DEP has some best management practices that talk about a number of methods. They range in cost, but sometimes the simple ones are the best. So we can offer you a pamphlet that talks about that, but that's what we'd be referring to in this case.
The most common one is a trench with filled with crushed stone.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
Yes, sir. Agreed.
So with two conditions, I see.
Okay. Craig, you're all set. Pete, any questions,
No?
comments? Do you have any other, things you'd like to add to this or tell us about, or are you all set?
I think so, it's the first time I've ever done this, so
Okay, all right,
I'm a little bit green here.
that's okay.
So, what are we saying, Let's,
So I'll tell you what I'm anticipating, will be a motion to approve this application. It'll have two conditions. One will be before any construction occurs, that we will receive information about a DEP certified contractor
okay,
for the purpose of excavation for that line.
okay,
The second one will be that, to control the roof runoff, that you'd be applying DEP, best management practices.
Okay.
And we'll give you a pamphlet about that.
okay.
And then once we, I'm guessing we'll approve it, and should we do that, then we will say it's been approved and it'll be mailed to you.
Okay.
But at that point, I will then reiterate, no construction to occur before, the conditions are met.
Now, for my own edification, do you consider tear down as construction? Because I would really like to get that
For the,
down.
certified contractor, that's an earthwork contractor. So you need to be moving soil, if you're just putting it on post with, no excavation.
Right,
But either way, I think it's gonna be before you can even start construction.
that's fine.
Yes.
But can I finish tearing it down?
If we're approving this, yes.
I don't see any reason why not.
Yeah, we're gonna, my neighbors, in fact, a number of the Bessies have used these, I don't know what they're called. Someone, Gary made the name of it and I didn't write it down, so I can't remember the green post.
Techno post,
Yeah, the techno post.
yeah,
That's what I'm thinking I'd like to do.
and that's, doesn't require earth movement,
Right,
but the
the
septic
septic will.
does.
Right.
But we're gonna put it all into one.
Yeah.
Or do you have a septic plan or anything?
I just have to get a contract, I mean, the septic's here, it's a huge tank. It's
It
probably-
exists already.
It all exists already, there'll be nothing but a line.
So you just put a new line?
Just put a line to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, septic's there, it's a big tank.
So, as always, I would say, if you have any questions about any of these things, refer to Gary Fuller, the
Yep.
town CEO.
Yep.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, is the board all ready to move on this? I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion on permit 4919 with two conditions. One is a certified contract to be supplied to us prior to construction. Number two, using the DOT best practice management for the stormwater runoff.
And that certified contractor is for digging the line?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be for building the cabin, just
Right, it's
digging
just
the
the
line,
earthwork.
okay.
Right.
And that's what this box is up in this left-hand corner, that you check now.
Okay.
We need that license, so
All right.
like if you use Jason Stevens,
Right.
they're all certified.
Yeah.
Okay,
Takes the burden away from you that way.
Yes, absolutely, I know,
which is good. So we have a motion on the floor, seconded. Any more discussion?
I think I'm good for now, thank you.
Does the board have any more questions? All those in favor? 4 in favor, none opposed. It's been granted, it will be mailed to you.
Okay, thank you.
And it looks like, to your Waterloo address, is that correct?
Yes, yes, I need to walk, because we're on the mailing address here.
Okay. Well, best wishes.
Thank you very much.
Yep, Nick will be expecting to have the information coming from you about whoever the certified
Yep,
contractor will be.
Yep.
And, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And where are those pamphlets you were talking about?
Well, I can get you one, you want
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you all for signatures.
Enjoy what's left of summer.
Yeah, yes. Well.
Double the size of my desk.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm good now.
And usually everybody comes in, and they think they're coming into a church and stay in the back.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Nick.
Oh, shit, I said, did I go over that? Did I go over that?
Thanks, Nick. You, sir. All set? Great. Let's go back to the old business. This would be the public meeting on the commercial application for the Hello Good Pie application. We had a review with you last time. And when we last met, we went through the checklist, and I think we identified several things. We have that we had gone through, and noted them, and we had reviewed them with you. I believe you had all that information.
Yes, and I've supplied the missing information,
Okay.
and had some comments about a couple of other things. So
Okay. So let's try to go through this.
that's in order of the list. The package I gave you.
Yep.
The new items are in order of this list. So
Okay. And does everybody have that package?
So this is a, public meeting, is there anybody here to speak?
There was one email I got.
And
That's all I
I was gonna read that.
What's that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I want to make sure that the citizen is heard.
Okay,
Excuse
so
me, can I interrupt a second? I'm sorry, I just knew this. Am I gonna, do I have to do any voting tonight on this particular issue or what?
You know, I was just thinking about that, Pete. We had gone through the review with the applicants before when you weren't here. I'm not certain if it might be safe just to say, excuse yourself for the vote part, but participate otherwise.
You got three here, right?
Right, so that would be the quorum.
You don't need me to vote, and I'm not really up to speed on this at all.
Right, right. So do you, is that acceptable as far as you're
Yeah.
concerned?
I
Okay.
just wanna clarify that.
Thank you for doing so. And we reviewed this last time, we were the quorum.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yes. Craig?
Okay, so this is from Stephen Zambelli, who lives right across from the storage units, that driveway directly across. To who this may concern. First, I received a letter about the planning board meeting August 1st. I received the letter Saturday morning as we were leaving for vacation July 27th for 5 days before the meeting. I'm 120 miles away and can't make the meeting. I should have gotten more than a week's notice, as most people make their reservations in a year in advance. Well, I live in lot 76 across from the storage units, and I've been there before the storage units, and I'm opposed to a 5,000 square foot building, and I may not be the only one that doesn't think that we need another restaurant in town. Well, we'll let it be known I oppose it. And that's Stevens and Belly across the street.
So thank you for representing the citizen in this case.
would you like us to respond, or is it necessary?
It's not necessary, right? Because all the taxpayers are able to come to a public meeting and offer comments, should they desire. And this was written, and so, for the record, we want to make sure that he was represented. So, when last we met, we went through this checklist, and I was thinking we could go through it to look to see if we could determine if we now have a complete application in front of us. One of the first things that we had talked about was a signed and notarized copy of the deed, option sales agreement, and lease documentation, so.
Well, we have, it's signed. It, however, is not notarized.
Oh, okay. All right, so I see what, I think I see what you did. So the new package that you've supplied, after you get through the 30-ish pages of the application, which it looks like you resupplied to us, is that
So,
correct?
so what I've supplied, the new package that I supplied, works in conjunction with the list that we made last time. So the missing items that were.
So after the last page, I can see there's an agreement for the purchase and sale of real estate. It looks like.
Now, I was just wondering about, because it's not stamped by the notary, but it's been signed,
And witnessed.
Does it say that it's been notarized? Does the land use ordinance require that?
Stand by. I had written down signed and notarized, but maybe it is not required that it's notarized.
Okay.
well, that was my question, I went out and asked Nick, when I went down to get licensed for it,
Yeah,
they said that's what they did,
that's what?
that's made legal. But even on this, there's no place where it asks for the notary to sign.
Okay,
Because all on my paperwork, there's a place for the notary to sign and you put down the number.
okay.
This does not have that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that for the purchase of real estate, that the purchase agreement has to be notarized, because everything when it goes into escrow starts becoming notarized.
Basically, it's just as good as Andrew.
Right.
Can I interrupt? Question. This is the agreement you're talking about, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, it's gonna be notarized, it says on the last page, you do the notary and all that stuff. Does it say, there's nothing about notary on this last page.
Right.
So-
That's what we're talking about right now, Pete.
There's nothing notarized.
But does it have to be?
Oh, by according to
The ordinance. We're just trying to make sure we dot our i's and cross our t's.
Also, does a purchase and sale agreement need to be notarized to start with?
I see a lot of, some are, but you know, are not. Okay.
But my question right now, Pete, is that this came like this from whoever fixed this up. And usually there's a place on the bottom where you put your stamp and the notary signs it and puts his numbers on it, which is what I do. There's no place here for that. So that's why I'm thinking if it was even, if it's called for.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You can get it.
Okay, so what you're seeing right here is that it was signed, there's a witness.
Now, the only way you could make it even more legal is if there would have been a place for the notary to sign and it had been stamped and not signed.
Okay. All right, well, I'm thinking then that the signees and witness would suffice.
I'm thinking in this case.
And
we're okay.
And Jordan, she's probably the notary, no, she's the real estate person.
Witness.
Yeah.
All right, the witnesses.
Yep. Craig, what page you on?
I haven't found it yet.
I haven't either.
Page 28.
I did a search for the word notary in the ordinance, and nothing came up. So notary is a word, so.
Thank you. That makes me think that it's not required
Right.
for the purposes of review. So I would suggest that we move forward on this and indicate complete.
Yeah, even in the back in the definitions, you don't have no word.
So based on our discussion, I would feel comfortable in saying that this has been complete, that particular line.
I think in this case it'd be
Yeah.
okay.
The checklist just says copy of deed, option, sales agreement, lease or documentation of title, right, or interest. The words on there do not indicate that it must be notarized.
How do you feel, Craig?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, thanks, yep. I think so, based on our discussion. Next, moving ahead, where we had a star was a copy of the Maine Geological Survey Significant Sand and Gravel Aquifer Map showing the property location. Is that this one?
That's complete.
Okay.
I don't have that.
Peter, are you going to the original packet?
I'm going through whatever's on in front of
You
me.
wanna use mine?
Nope, as long as someone can tell me that it's done, that's all
Yeah,
I'm
it's
talking
here.
about.
Complete.
Yeah, Greg's got it too.
Thanks. I probably have enough paper to choke a horse, so it'll be okay. Thank you. Thank you. Next, that we had starred was a copy of the Maine Drinking Water Program map of public drinking water supplies showing property location. Is that complete?
We have a map from Maine Center of Disease and Control Prevention.
What was that?
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Complete.
Cause it's, what does it say up here? Maine Center for Disease Control and Prevention.
And these are the public water, systems in the Great Lakes.
So, the fire department,
Yeah,
And the circle's a 300-foot
and,
circle.
Sunset Grill and the other restaurant.
okay. Village Inn or whatever.
The Village Inn is there, Sunset Grill and that other restaurant that just reopened.
Oh, yeah.
This campus there before the fire department.
Yep.
Those are the three drinking, public drinking now.
And then this property location is between the two.
Right there.
Yeah. It's a little funny, I must say, that we're looking for a Maine drinking water program map. And maybe drinking water program falls under CDC, it could very well be.
You're gonna find out here pretty soon that it's not even relevant, because
Okay.
I'll tell you about that when we get to it.
Okay, my only comment about it is
Okay,
that
we'll
when
cover
we're
it.
looking at it, it's hard to equate what we're asking for to that particular,
Oh, I see.
but we're good. Next, copy of an MDOT highway entrance or access permit, do we have that?
So I have an application there, okay? We actually have to own the property to get the permit.
Yep.
So we're kind of in a catch-22 situation there. So I did talk to Dave Allen, and I got the application, he told me where to get the application, and he also told me that we will require a permit, but the driveway is going to have to be 30 feet wide. I went and measured it, and it's in excess of that now, but we're gonna have to pave it. So we'll have to pave it, he said 30 feet back. But I can't get a permit until we own the property.
And you don't own the
And
property.
you can't give me a permit until I get that permit, but, you know, I can't start anything until I get that permit.
Cause you don't own the property?
Right.
And this other thing here doesn't say you own it
Well,
yet?
see, the statute says that you can't give me a permit. You know, you can't give me a permit until I have the DOT permit. That has to come
It's like
first.
putting insurance on a car that you don't own.
Right,
Right, and so, as you know, we're making the determination about whether or not to move forward based on whether we get an approval for, you know, the building and its use. So, we can't get that permit yet.
See, my big question is, it's not the driveway, the wide, because I went by and I looked at it, it's plenty wide, but are they gonna need a traffic study? For the amount of vehicles, for the amount of vehicles, a traffic study for the amount of vehicles.
Well, I think, doesn't DOT do all that stuff, you know, all that stuff?
that was my understanding, Pete.
Yeah, that's, you know,
So
Sweet Green,
when Lori,
you know when Sweet Green went in years ago? That was one of the big issues down there. DOT takes care of all the traffic flow, this and that, blah, blah, blah. You know, what you're concerned with, you know? But, getting back to the, you know, catch-22 situation, you know, you could essentially do the thing with condition.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
It's like,
And
when Lori came in and was gonna buy the antique shop, I don't think you were a member of the board,
No.
you were? Didn't the state said we didn't need it because the building was already there and stuff? So this is probably the same situation.
Probably, it's a good memory.
Well, if it wouldn't be anything there at all, then yeah, they'd probably need a study, which, when Hammond was gonna do that to the old cabinet place.
Yep.
We needed it.
that's a good point,
Yep.
But there's gotta be a way we can go through and approve this with conditions, because people are gonna go out and buy a $200,000 property, and take a chance. So we gotta be able to approve the permit before people purchase. Because otherwise, how they don't know whether to purchase it or not.
Right.
So we're gonna use conditions on things that can't be done
Right.
until ownership.
And I think the key words on this would be title, right, or interest. They clearly express interest.
But I think for a driveway deal, it's basically for a new driveway, for a driveway opening period, and the driveway is already there.
It is. So, from an ownership perspective, Craig, I feel like you, that since they don't own it, and there are other instances, not just this one, where a person were gonna be applying for something, they wouldn't go out and spend an exorbitant amount of money on something they don't own if they didn't already know that they could go ahead and make some movement on something. I think that's why, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but when they say, you know, have title, right, or interest,
Yeah, that's fine, but they can't give us this permit until they buy it. So we need to either decide to give them a condition on market complete, with the condition that we get the permit. Or,
exactly.
so I mark it complete with the condition.
Okay. So that's gonna be an area we're gonna have an issue. Then the next line, which is related to MDOT, a copy of MDOT traffic movement permit and traffic movement study. We had said, not applicable last time. Right? Next was copies of other required state or local permits, that was starred.
Right, and we had discussed that we won't be getting all those permits until after we purchase the property. But one thing I would like to determine is exactly what permits we need. I've gone through and talked to everybody concerned and found out what was required and what wasn't. That's gonna be part of my discussion I wanna have with you when we get to those areas. like the public drinking water, for example, and then, the stormwater management, or the stormwater permit, this falls under the 1 acre threshold. So they told, actually I have an email from them as part of this, to tell me that it's not required, so.
And that was from DEP Stormwater Management?
Yeah. It's from Dustin Dorr. And he is at, I have it here. Oh, Dustin Dorr is the water inspector for the DEC. DEC, or Department of, gotta remember who I talked to.
Dustin works at DEP.
DEP, yeah, right. He's actually the inspector, and so he sent me an email telling me that permit's not required because we're under a 1 acre threshold.
So when we get to that point, and we're talking about that, do you think you could come up with that email? Because I'm thinking
You have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Did anybody see that email?
It's near the back of the package because we haven't got there yet. It's actually the last of the small pages. Oh no, second to the last of the small pages. This is Wade at Spire CN at the top.
Does he cite some, yeah, anyway.
Storm management permit, one acre or more of an area will be disturbed. In this case, my understanding that the lot in question is under 1 acre in size, therefore stormwater permit would not be required.
Okay, good. Okay, so, so for copies of other required state or local permits, based on the couple of things that we talked about here, do we think this is complete then? Or is it?
The other permitting question is gonna be the transient public water supply, which, I have some notes here about that. Although we've submitted a preliminary approval application for transient public water system, the Maine DEC, Darren Braun, he's the water inspector, Darren Braun, has notified us that a public water system will not be required if we do not produce ice or serve tap water to customers. I gave him an entire application already, and he made his determination from that.
Where are you with that?
That's on the additional information page. I think it's your
Oh,
last.
Maine CDC. Okay,
And then there's also a copy of the application in here that I did send him.
okay. Okay, well, if they said that, then that's what they said. How does the board feel about this item concerning other state or local permits?
Did you state you read the thing from the fire department too?
So we have that from the fire department? Okay, that's good.
So, state permitting doesn't, permitting in the kitchen and stuff doesn't affect us, so that.
No.
Cause that's inside, we're just doing the. So that's the only thing we needed, and I'd say complete.
We had talked about the signs too, and they got a picture, but they didn't put up on the signs.
Yep. That's updated. So we'll get to that, right? But in terms of other required state or local permits, how do we feel about what they've supplied for information concerning the three, there were a couple of topics there, right? One was the drinking water, one was the storm water. and the fire inspector or fire marshal or whatever.
I had a question. Greg, you mentioned on the cooking and all that stuff, that permitting is not part of this process? What?
That will come under health.
So at what point, at what juncture does the owner, that's not, right, so the use, I don't understand what the sequence is. So we get the permit to build the place and all that, and the use of it is gonna be one restaurant, building cooking, so before it. So then he goes and gets a use of, you know, the occupancy type of, permit, be it from the state, to do, business, right? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, the state's gonna come in and tell him what he needs for a kitchen. You know, what size for the sinks, the hoods over the stove, that's all in the state regulations.
Okay.
The fire suppressor and all that stuff that's gonna be going in. So we've got nothing to do with that.
And, okay, I just wanna get that clarified so you understand that, I understand too.
Yeah, cause we don't deal with these every day, so it's, forgive us as we have to make sure we're reviewing things.
So the phosphorus, we just gotta make sure that it's not getting down to the lakes, and apparently that's,
So I do have a phosphorus, I've updated, page EC01 and, included another page EC02. As a stormwater and phosphorus control plan, I've placed dry wells, where all of the, connected to each downspout. There'll be dry wells there. We'll slope the driveway. The largest, first of all, we're not going to disturb any vegetation that's there at all. We won't be removing any trees or anything like that. Okay, so, and it's pretty much surrounded by trees except for what faces Augusta Road. In the park, as you know, is just downhill from that.
Right.
So the combination, I feel like well, first of all, we do in fact qualify for a, we qualify for a simplified phosphorus export or phosphorus control plan, because we fall under the threshold of size. It's a 30,000 square foot size threshold, and the lot is 29,000 square feet. So, and that's according to the ordinance. So this is a simplified plan, okay? And according to the ordinance, there are certain suggestions in the simplified plan. One of them was dry wells. So we put that in there. We'll gently slope the driveway, not the driveway, but the parking area towards the most vegetated area, and then also it's also just uphill from the park, so that's all vegetated. All right. So the idea was to not drain directly into the drainage swells that are on each side, because they don't have an opportunity to perk through the ground as much as it would if we pointed toward the park. Okay, and then that in conjunction with the dry wells where we don't have a lot of surface water anyway, from the roof anyway, that helps a lot too. And then on the road, the Augusta Road side, there's currently no, well, there are trees on the one lower right-hand corner, but if you'll see that I've placed 3 trees near the parking spaces. And that's also according to the ordinance, and 2 trees per every 100 feet.
That we talked about last time.
Yeah, so a minimum of 6 feet tall when they're planted. And then there's also going to be a minimum 3 feet high hedgerow there.
I see, yep.
And in addition to that, we've got mulch and seed in areas. So we will, as you know, there's a building there now that is larger than the building that we're proposing, okay? And so our actual roof coverage is gonna be less, all right? But we're going to take care of a lot of that through the dry wells. We're also going to mulch and seed 20 to 25% of the property. So we're going to reduce some of the phosphorus in that way.
Okay. It's in that, northwest corner, or southwest corner, it says mulch and seed.
That would be the northwest corner, kind of. There's a north arrow on the other plan.
Yeah, that's what, like, oh, which way is this going? Yeah. Okay,
Well, I was gonna mulch and seed all along the north edge of the property. The idea was to try to add to that buffer that already exists.
Your only pavement's gonna be in the entrance, right? Just that 30 feet?
Yeah, DOT is gonna require that we pave it approximately 30 feet from the road in. Up to the property line,
Yeah.
basically.
okay. So, for everybody's sake, I'm just on page 33, about section 13, where it talks about stormwater management. Just wanna make sure that we're all in sync with what Dustin has talked about. 'Cause, right, 'cause from his perspective at the state, right? Dustin Dorr said the department may require a stormwater management permit if 1 acre or more will be disturbed. This is not the case in York, in this case. So from the state's perspective, they're not requiring one. Just wanna make sure that we're in sync with what's going on. Cause what I'm still thinking about, that I think we're good on the line that says copies of other state or local permits. So from the perspective of state stormwater permit, I see how that would not be required.
There are two things about this. First of all, we fall under the 30,000 square foot threshold
Right.
because the lot is 29,000 square feet. And then the other thing is, I did in fact, this is a stormwater management plan that I'm giving you.
Right,
So I think I kind of covered both ways.
I think so. Do you have calculations for phosphorus runoff? I mean, I know, because you've talked, forgive me if I'm going over this and it may seem repetitive, but, and I appreciate what you're doing here with the, these dry wells. Do we have calculations associated with what they do in terms of mitigating phosphorus export?
No, I don't have those calculations. And
It's gonna be.
I don't know, you guys can tell me if the calculations are required for a simplified phosphorus control plan or not.
I do not think they are. I was just asking.
And we do fall within the simplified.
So, okay. All right, so for now, thank you, everybody. So for now, is the board okay? Or do we think that more is needed for the copies of other state or local permits line? Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, we'll need to put a condition on getting the DOT permit.
Yeah, correct. Correct. Yeah. I'm turning the page now to our checklist, which was on page 33.
This is where I have a question.
Yes.
The MDEP certified contractor name and number, is that only inside the shoreland zone? Because this does not fall within the shoreline zone.
I think it's for commercial, isn't it?
I
that's what, the reason I'm asking this question is because of the guy that was here before, you know, and
Right.
you were talking about it, he needed it because he was in the shoreline zone, but I'm assuming it's because it's residential.
That's correct.
So we haven't determined our excavation contractor yet because we just, you know, we didn't wanna waste anybody's time.
Right, right. And
What does the ordinance require?
Yeah, Greg, you think it does?
I just wanted to point to it, Pete, if we could. So, I might be in the right spot, maybe not, but I'm starting on page 9 where it says submission requirements. I'm just trying to go through the list there. And we're kind of into it.
One page,
Yeah.
I ran out of ink.
Is that what you went by too?
No, I just say I ran out of ink when I was printing this on page 9, so. No, I haven't answered that, I don't know the answer to that question, whether it's required if we're not in the shoreline zone.
Hey, no, just gonna, I remember talking about it years ago, when we were drafting this.
All it says is
It's
it's
kind
gonna
of-
be
it's-
maintained by the DOT best practices,
Where are you?
22,
Oh.
under erosion control.
And see, I'm looking at submission requirements.
Yeah.
Where it says, all non-residential development review applications shall consist of 8 copies of the following materials and information unless otherwise noted. And I was thinking that this would reflect the checklist.
Well, what I've noticed about the checklist is that it has items that may or may not be required because of, depending on things like shoreline zone or size of lot, things to that effect.
Well, based on what I'm seeing for the 5.4 submission requirements, I don't see anything that indicates that a DEP certified contractor will be required for information.
And, you know, you could just put, you could just make a note, if we want further research to come across it, revisit it, but now.
Especially since we haven't chosen one yet, it wouldn't be
Right.
a major issue.
And so since I don't see it as required, I would also offer to the board that should we move ahead and want to approve this, it could be a condition that we could ask for. You know,
If the research indicates that the need to be.
Yep.
Like that.
something like that. So I would say that for right now, maybe we move on, because I'm not seeing any requirement.
It
Yes,
says if it's under 30,000 square feet, if it's over that, it's gotta be prepared by a licensed professional engineer, that's it.
right,
So that's,
That's it.
we're under that, so.
right. So I'm not seeing anything else from our updated ordinance that says this is required for the application. So, moving on, if it's okay with the board. The next star we had was a copy of application provided to fire chief by planning board or CEO. We had something that was presented to Mr. McKenzie.
So this is actually a requirement of something you guys do.
I know, when I was reading that, I'm thinking, yeah,
Yeah. However, I did send him plans and, I mean, he's got a copy of the plans and things like that, which is what he used to generate that letter.
okay. So thank you for doing your part, we have the copy of the letter. It seems odd that we'd be asking for a complete checklist for us to do something to provide to them when it hasn't been approved yet. A little backwards. Alright. Turning to page 34, I had 3 follow-up things.
Mhm.
One was information to meet parking standard, Article 6, Section 9. You started, I think, to talk about that.
I'm sorry, what was the, it was, information meeting parking standard, Article 6, Section 9.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you like to know? I'm right up on it.
Let's do that.
Okay, so what the ordinance specifies that when it comes to placement of the parking spaces, that they can't be within 5 feet of any side or back line, okay, not the front line, okay? So there's 3 parking spaces on the side that we'll have to move farther into the lot, which we have plenty of room for. And then the other thing about the parking spaces is that I've come to the conclusion that we're gonna need to put wheel stops along the front because there is an embankment there. And so we're gonna eat up every bit of that 5 feet anyway, because we do have a vegetative buffer we're putting there, so.
Okay.
So, and that's what we were talking about before was the potential for 5 feet. And we're according to the, we also determined that the comprehensive plan allows, we don't need the 35-foot buffer. And that's where the
Right.
3-foot high hedge comes in.
Right.
And as far as number of spaces, we're required to have 1/2 space per seat. We have 12 or 24 seats, so we're only required to have 12, and we have 17.
Okay.
So even if we had to lose the side ones, we would still be within. And then also a two-way center lane has to be at least 22 feet wide, and we have 36. So we're still good in that area as well.
Trucks can get in there, right? All that stuff, supply trucks?
Yes, yeah. So they'll be able to come in and go alongside of the building and then go around the back where the loading bay is, and there's lots of room to turn around. Because we're actually taking about 20 feet of that building off, getting rid of it, or 20, I shouldn't say that. We're taking that whole building down, but the new building starts 20 feet closer to the front than the other one was. So there'll be an additional 20 feet back there for a turnaround and parking, so.
I'm curious, it says parking spaces will not be located within the right-of-way of a public road.
Right.
I can't imagine there's any conflict here, but
No,
I'm
because
just
we're about
curious.
30 feet back. Well,
Well,
I don't know if you call the right of way where the ditch is or not, but we're certainly gonna be, our property line isn't in the right of way.
okay,
So we'll be 5 feet back from that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
The thing that can happen is that there's a right-of-way and a perceived understanding of where property is. So I just didn't wanna see any conflict.
I think that that also probably goes towards, people trying to take credit for parking for street parking spaces.
Possibly so.
So you can't, you can't count a street parking space as part of your parking requirement.
Okay. So for, the follow-up question, that we had there, information to meet the parking standards, does the board feel that for this line, Article 6, Section 9, that, meeting the parking standard, is sufficient, or is complete, I should say, what they've supplied?
So what they supplied is on EC01, we have another,
Yeah.
I don't have last week's.
The old site plan,
Okay.
would you like to see it?
I remember.
It'd be the big one.
You have that with the original, it'll be
Yes.
with the original, correct?
Yep, it's with the original. And for the record, the thing called EC01 has been updated and that's supplied,
Yes.
so that would then be appended to the
I
application.
remember seeing that last week.
How many handicaps you gonna have in there?
One, there's only one required,
Yeah.
for the size that we have. I believe the ordinance says 1 per 25.
Yeah.
And it's 18 by, I'm trying to remember, 18 by 12.
Then you'll probably find that when you buy the sign, it's gonna have an arrow pointing two ways.
Pardon?
You're gonna buy a sign with an arrow pointing two ways,
Yeah.
like two spots.
And this ordinance says parking spaces shall be a minimum of 9 feet in width by 18 feet in length. Is that the case for all of these?
Yes, and the handicap is 12 feet by 18 feet
Okay,
is the ordinance.
okay, thank you. Okay. Are we okay to move along to?
Yes, I'd say,
Okay, thanks, will do. Next, I had a star for a written statement from the fire chief on capacity of fire department to provide adequate protection.
last week, years.
That was it. Next follow-up question was information to meet screening of structures, parking lots, and other non-residential use standard. Article 6, Section 11. I'm on page 29 for the planning board. So we'll follow standards apply to non-residential uses in fronting public roads. All residential uses have vegetative screen or buffer. Then we talk about the village area. This is what we were talking about with you last time.
This is also where you're supposed to have 2 trees per 100 feet, and if they're not there, you need to plant 2 trees within 100 feet.
Right.
So we have 3 in that area where there are no trees. The minimum is 6 feet tall
Yep.
at planting.
So for the board, when I went to page 30, and then it says some stuff where it's required, except as provided in subsection C for the village areas as identified in 2014 comprehensive plan. And you then go to section C on page 31, and it talks about the things that Wade's talking about right here. So I would say, does anybody have any other questions on that one? Because from what I'm seeing, what's been supplied, that would be complete in my mind. And that is a change based on our conversation, when we talked last, I don't think you, we had a conversation about that, and now you adjusted. And
I've adjusted because especially I've stipulated the 3 feet high on the hedge, and then I've also added the 3 trees. And it also indicates in there that we're not going to disturb any of the natural vegetation that's there already.
Yep.
So we don't have to cut one tree down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next, I had follow-up on stormwater management plan. I think that has been addressed by what you talked about with the email and the conversation with Dustin Dorr. Next, turning the page to 35, I had, there were 4 starred items that I think we would be talking about. One is a copy of the Drinking Water Program Public Water Supply Approval and Source Water Protection Plan.
We discussed that a little while ago about, I was advised to not serve ice or water because then they said we're out of it. So that's exactly what he told me.
So that you will not be serving ice or tap water.
Right. Now, at some point down the line, if we want to change that, we do fully intend to monitor our water quality, and then we'll have all of that data, and we'll be able to apply for that if we ever want to.
Right.
But in the meantime, we'll import our ice, have it delivered.
And as is often the case, whatever permit is, whatever application is permitted, that's all is permitted.
Mhm.
So if
Understood.
there is something that you do afterwards, then we would request that you notify us about that change.
Understood.
And we would, I'm sure, have a conversation. Next was a copy of the MDEP stormwater management permit.
That's where the email applies, because we're under 1 acre.
Next was phosphorus export control method, and you have the dry wells that you indicated. You've seen the dry wells before in other instances, I'm sure. And then the last one, other information to meet water quality standard, Article 6, Section 15
There's a sheet.
for that.
I was reading from earlier, so I might have the wrong file. Oh, here it is. It's titled Additional Information Concerning Article 6, Section 15 of the ordinance.
Creative.
Yeah. So, it's kind of a vague requirement, right? So I think that the spirit of that requirement was that I understand this water quality standard. So I made some notes. Like section 15A2 does not apply because water demand falls well short of 2,000 gallons per day threshold. According to our septic design and the calculations done in that, we're estimating 750 gallons a day, so we're well below that. Then there's other requirements for water quality. If you water quality control, if you use hazardous or toxic chemicals or petroleum products, if you store them, which we won't, we don't do, so that doesn't apply to us as well. And then there's a statement about the preliminary approval of the transient public water that we just discussed.
Yep.
And then according to section 15B5 A, the project qualifies for a simplified phosphorus control method.
Right. Everybody see that? That's on page 37. Okay. I would say then that would be complete for that line item. And I believe that was it for the items that we wanted to review with the applicant to find out if it was complete or not. So I think the DOT, or is it? Yeah. DOT highway entrance or access permit was the only thing that's remaining. Otherwise, I think, am I missing something? I think that was it, wasn't it?
That's all I have written down.
Roger, Pete, any other
He's got
questions?
three conditions.
No, just the DOT's question, I just wrote down no tap water ice, and we were discussing about the DEP license number, but I don't think that's required.
Right, right.
So it's just the DOT permit, when, that would be the only condition.
Okay. So does that make sense for everybody here on the board, that in terms of having, because our first order of business is to find out if we have a complete application package in front of us. I think that we do, less the DOT
Right.
thing, which
Catch-22.
is a catch-22. I think, Pete, your idea about, or Craig, I can't remember who suggested about perhaps having a condition upon purchase that we receive that information.
Yeah, I guess, and actually revisiting the no tap water ice, I mean, I guess that should be a condition as well.
Right, right.
The DEP license. I mean, if we discover, but, I mean, 90% of the contractors out there are all licensed unless.
Right, right. And based on our observations of the ordinance as of this moment, we found no requirement of it in the section in which I was looking anyway.
You know, Mark, we're not in a meeting right now, I'll call you back. Put an hour, so.
So, I would say the two conditions would be the no tap water and the DOT.
Okay. Yeah, that's not
And
very.
to clarify, the tap water, that's only, we're allowed to use it for cooking. Because anytime you heat it, it's fine. Yeah.
No service.
No serving.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So, this is the original one, so based on that, are we ready to make a motion on this application as being complete or not? Okay, I would entertain a motion, and I know we have some conditions, so I would entertain a motion. The permit number. Yeah. Hang on. I'm sure it's here.
It's 19.2.
19.2?
It's the second commercial.
Thank you. Thanks, 19.2. Are you building a case for Craig's motion?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that permit number 19.2 have two conditions in order to be complete. First condition is before construction, we receive the DOT permit. And the second condition is there will be no serving of tap water or ice to the public.
It's ice made on site. I mean, we want to be able to.
Ice made on site.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor with two conditions. Nick, did you catch what he said? Everybody hear that? Good job.
Second.
And seconded. Any more discussion on this? So this is to determine completeness. All those in favor? 3 in favor?
One abstain.
1 abstain. Okay. So that's
This part of it.
now we'll do the findings of fact. Thank you, sir, appreciate that.
Excuse me, Chairman, can I excuse myself for about 10 minutes?
Yes, sir. Okay. So Nick, so I signed the one that we called original?
Perfect.
Okay, and that's right here on this package, that's called original. And, for the record, the the application will be amended, I suppose, not amended, supplemented by application material that was submitted by Wade. So, and that will be with this package. Okay, so that's one that you gave me. It's a package.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I'm trying not to make too much noise with the paper because the microphone's right in front of where the paper is. So should anybody be listening, rather than hearing it just crinkle all the time.
Those don't work.
They don't work yet? Okay, all right. All right, so set that aside, make that all together, okay? All right. Okay, here we go with the findings of fact. This is a process that we go through to determine if we can make a, we'll make a decision based on what we see. So Nick, you helped fill out this information at the top. Thank you so much for doing so. In the matter of Hello Good Pie, with the applicant named Hello Good Pie Sherry Hamilton, at the 39 Main Street location in Belgrade Lakes, represented by Wade, is it Bartel?
Bartel, B-A-R-T-E-L.
Project location is Augusta Road, map 25, lot 6. To the Town of Belgrade Code Enforcement Officer pursuant to the Belgrade Commercial Development Review Ordinance, last amended on March 17th, 2017, the Planning Board has considered the application of Hello Good Pie including its site plan, other supporting materials and documentation, public meeting, which is tonight, testimony, and other related materials contained in the record, and makes the following findings of fact and conclusions of law. You had no waiver request, correct?
Correct.
So, application from, project summary type, this would be the, construction, what's the summary? Trying to fit in succinctly in what this is a construction of a restaurant,
It's a bakery,
construction of a bakery.
a bakery with, I don't know what, it's got a bakery with 24 seats.
Bakery cafe.
That would be
Yeah,
appropriate.
bakery, yeah, okay.
Was waiver request submitted? I'm saying no, because you requested no waivers.
Correct.
Application review process, date the application accepted as complete was today, so that's 8/1. Was a site visit conducted? No, because there was no, we scheduled no site visit. I know a number of us are down there frequently.
And Gary's been there.
Put down with conditions.
Where?
Already accepted with conditions.
Where, oh, right here?
Yeah, where you put the date.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to sell this tonight, but with conditions.
Okay, good point. So was site visit conducted? No. Board meeting dates, we met to review this last time, that was July, like,
25th? No, 18th.
July 18th, 2018. And today's August 1. Date board rendered final decision will be today. So there's a lot we have to read through, so please be patient with us. Review criteria findings. The board finds that the application for the subject project is complete and the applicable application fee has been paid in full to the town. Application materials, site plan and supporting documentation has been submitted by the applicant and are retained in the project file maintained in the Belgrade Town Office under the project name. First part talks about the applicant has requested the board waive. You have none. That's not applicable in this case. Okay, the applicant has provided supporting documentation to demonstrate that the board's satisfaction that the following ordinance requirements or standards are not applicable due to this proposed project size, site conditions, design, type, or other unique features. I'm thinking under 30,000. I guess I'm wondering, should we list anything that would set this apart in any other way? Is there anything we need to list?
Yeah, I think if it'd be like a body shop or something like that, yeah.
Because we didn't have anything that wasn't not applicable. We had some design things relative to the well, it doesn't matter because whatever we have talked about, it's all part of the application package. Does anybody have any questions? So maybe we don't have to distinguish this from anything else. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. Next, the application and/or the application has failed to provide adequate supporting documentation. So that's not the case here. So then we get into it. So the board finds that the project will not or will cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in the land's capacity to hold water. The project design plan, is that dated 7/31? I mean, we have new material that's dated 7/31.
Yeah, the updates were 7/31, the original is 7/1. So the building plans were 7/1.
And soil erosion plan, that was back on the original one, correct?
Well, the updated plan is
Oh,
7/31.
7/31. Okay, thank you. The board finds that the project, so I indicated both those dates on here, so it would be part of the record. The board finds that the project will not or will have adverse impact on freshwater wetlands, Article 6, Sections 3 and 6. The board finds that the project will not or will have adverse impact on lake, pond, or stream based on site applications. The board finds that the project will not or will provide for adequate stormwater management. The board finds that the project will not or will provide adequate sewage disposal. Article 6, Section 14 and 15. The board finds that the project is not or is located in a floodplain area and conforms or does not conform with the Belgrade floodplain ordinance based on this. It is not. The board finds that the project will not or will result in air or water pollution. Article 6, sections 1, 13H, and 15. The board finds that the project will not or will have sufficient drinking water for current and foreseeable needs of the development. Will have sufficient, yeah.
It's gonna be important water, drinking water as well.
Right. Good point. The board finds that the project, along or in conjunction with existing activities, will not or will adversely impact the quality or quantity of groundwater. Article 6, sections 5 and 15A. The board finds that the proposed activity will dispose of all solid waste in conformance with all local regulations.
Will.
This talking about going to the town transfer facility, so that's what they're talking about.
So our plan is we're gonna have a dumpster.
So that would be well. Next, the board finds that the project will not or will have a significant detrimental effect on adjacent land uses and properties affected by waste, noise, glare, lighting, fumes, smoke, dust, odors, or their effects from the project. So I have a question about that. Roger, you pointed out a new lighting form that was submitted, is that correct? Or sign with a light that's on it. What's changed between last time and this time with that?
Nothing with the light.
So the light's the same, it's a downward facing kind
Well, for the sign?
Yeah.
The light is capped, okay, and according to the ordinance, it can't be pointing up into the air.
Right.
Okay? And it's got diffusers in the glass so that it doesn't glare, right?
correct.
And particularly, you don't want it to glare because it's adjacent to the road, so you don't want
Yeah.
it shining in people's eyes.
Right. And then does the sign dimensions change?
The sign, okay, according to the ordinance, we talked about 32 square feet. It's 32 square feet isn't actually the size of the sign, it's the footprint. Okay, and it's the footprint, you're allowed 2 signs and it's 32 square feet combined footprint. Okay, we're well under that because they have about a 4 square foot footprint, you know, anyway. But I did change the size on that. I made it a little bit larger because I didn't want to be confined to a 3-foot high sign.
So I have a question, section 12D1. Because you use the word footprint in it.
Yeah, I have it. It is on.
Yeah, page 32. So no more than 2 signs which in combination are not more than 32 square feet in footprint area in size shall be permitted.
So an example of a sign that would have a larger footprint would be an A-frame type of sign. Okay, so if you had an A-frame type of sign that was, let's say it was 8 feet wide, okay, and it, in between each side was 4 feet, that's 32 square foot print. Oh yeah, it's way under. Each one of these signs is gonna have about, there's 2 signs, we're allowed 2 signs. One is way up, it's indicated on the site plan, and one is way up by the entrance. And they each have about a 2 or a 4 square foot footprint, the support. even if you were to determine that the footprint encompassed everything that, under the sign, we're still at only about 16 square feet combined. Because it would be you would have to say 2 feet wide by 4 feet. That's 8 feet. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of doubtful. And maybe it's my own misinterpretation of what 32 square foot in footprint area was intended to be. I think of it as if you had, let's see there, so 4 times 8 is 32, right?
Right.
If you had a big plywood sign, wouldn't that be 32 square feet?
But that's not the footprint.
And that's where we're having,
The
My-
footprint would be that part that connects to the ground.
and that's where we're having my question about it. Yeah.
Is there a definition section in the ordinance regarding footprint? We do have a definition.
Yes, yes, Pete, we do. Absolutely.
Nothing footprint. Floor area.
So
So we're looking at the sign ordinance or commercial on this?
we don't have a sign one, right? So we have just the commercial one. And, it's not that I want have an objection to the sign or anything like
No, I
that.
understand, you're telling.
Just wanna make sure we don't permit something that was not permitted or not intended to be permitted due to poor wording. If I'm misinterpreting something, that's fine, I'm happy to be wrong. I would rather talk it out, make sure we all understand it, right? And then go on from there.
Or even if we use the sign dimension for footprint, you're still under, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna be in there, we have 32 square feet.
The dimension of the sign?
Yeah.
Well, but it's combined, so we would be allowed, only be allowed 2 signs that were 4 feet by 4 feet. Which is, you know, quite small, but I think if you do the math on those are if we made that 5 feet by 3 feet, we would still fall.
I think they're also talking about the ones that they put on a great big concrete bases.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You know, or the ice cream shop, right? They have a sign that has quite a footprint. And that footprint's not supposed to be more than 32 feet.
All right, how do you guys feel about this?
I don't have a problem with that.
Pete, you all set?
You know, I don't, you know, I just from bringing it out, I think we need going forward, you know, we need to define it in definitions.
Yeah.
of the ordinance. You know,
You figure, Pete, like, Hammond lumber sign, for example. It's on 2 posts, I think, and it's all in concrete raised above the ground, 3 feet high. But it's like 14 feet by 4 feet. So that's where your square footage would come in, versus something like this, probably going a 5-gallon bucket.
Right, yeah, and and I think, you know, just this side discussion, we
Yep.
update some of the, you know, the ordinance commercial, we could.
I agree.
define it better.
So, thank you for that. So getting back to this, it either will not or will have significant detrimental effect.
Well, no.
Okay. Next one, the board finds that the project will not or will cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unusable conditions with respect to the use of existing proposed highway or roads.
Well, not.
The board finds that the project, to the maximum extent possible, will not or will have adverse effects on scenic or natural beauty of the area.
Well, not.
The board finds that the project, to the maximum extent possible, will not or will have an adverse effect on significant wildlife habitat.
Or not.
The board finds that the project does not conform or conforms with all other applicable Town of Belgrade ordinances, including but not limited to shoreline zoning, minimum lot size, subdivision, multifamily dwelling, manufactured housing and mobile home park, solid waste and recycling, municipal street and road, adult business, supplemental junkyard and auto graveyard, and tree ordinances. Does it not conform or does it conform?
It conforms.
The board finds that the project will not or will unreasonably increase the concentration of phosphorus in a great pond. Reference. The board finds that the project will not or will conform to material storage provisions. I think it will conform because they're not storing anything. Right, that's
Right, no hazardous material or petroleum products or chemicals.
The board finds that the applicant has or does not have sufficient title, right, or interest to undertake the development based. The board finds that the applicant does not or does or does not provide for safe and adequate parking.
Yes.
The board finds that the project will not or will conform to the applicable provisions of this ordinance, but not limited to development standards for specific activities where applicable, referencing Article 7, based on whatever reasons we have. Does the project will not or will conform to applicable?
Will.
So, before we go to the next part, let me just make sure to mention that there are standard conditions of approval to be included in all approvals. I'd like to read them to you so you know where we're coming from. If construction has not been substantially started within 12 months of board approval, this approval and subsequent permit from Belgrade CEO are null and void. Okay? The board approval of this project as described above is limited to that described in the application and depicted in the accompanying plan and other application submissions, except to the extent that the board has expressly indicated in this document that certain depictions may be revised by the applicant without further review and approval by the board. Any changes to the application, site plan, or supporting application submissions must receive prior approval to the board, including but not limited to changes in proposed location of structures, roads, parking, vehicle entrance and exit, wells, subsurface waste systems, the method of waste disposal, the extent and location of vegetated areas, material storage, outdoor lighting and signage, methods of stormwater and phosphorus runoff control. Really what this means is whatever is approved is only that which is approved, nothing more. Okay? Those are standard conditions of approval that we would have. There are two more. Unless a waiver from a specific ordinance standard has been requested by the applicant in writing and approved by the board, the development or use is required to meet all the applicable ordinance standards. 4, and final, this board approval and its associated permit from the CEO is transferable to subsequent owners of the property. All subsequent owners are required to comply with the conditions of the project's board approval. This is where we make a decision. How does the board feel at this time about this application? Fine. So, in my mind, I think we're fine too. We have conditions, right, on the completeness part that were stated, and it's minuted, and anybody who's listening would hear that. So, I'm thinking what that means for you, though, is that should this be approved, then those other conditions would still have to be met, so that everything will carry forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Are there any other conditions that are surfacing or brewing for people that we would have to consider? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve, or I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we accept the permit as submitted.
Okay. So a motion on the floor to accept and seconded. Any more discussion?
I do wanna make a comment though on a letter from the gentleman about the not wanting this.
Yes.
It is not a new restaurant, it already exists, it's just relocating across the street.
That is a good point.
So,
It is a good point.
we kind of mute on that one.
And I think that the applicant has stated that if there's concern about just having more buildings, and I'm not trying to interpret, I'm just trying to speak on behalf of someone who might have a concern, that it's just gonna be more buildings, that what is there now will be raised. What's in its place is a different footprint, and not as large.
And
If
not
I'm
as large.
understanding this
Correct.
correct, right? So, again, I'm not trying to interpret, I'm just trying to make sure we represent
And it'd be a better business that fits in the village area.
the other building where Good Pie currently exists. That building, you have no plans for that, right? So, I mean, someone else
Right,
would
right.
do something.
Yeah, I just lease that now and it'll be
Whatever.
yeah, whatever.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure we represent the townsfolk who have expressed interest. You know. It's fair to do so. Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor, second. Any more discussion? No. Any more concerns? No. All those in favor? 3 in favor, 1 abstained. This has been approved. So we're gonna say the town of Belgrade approves the project, subject to the following conditions. Yeah. So the CEO issues and it goes to you. So Gary, do you have a letter for Gary or whatever?
Yeah, I understand.
Or is it a letter from me to Gary that then he issues the permit? Is that right? Do we have to issue him a letter that says we
Right.
approve?
Make sure he gets a note on the conditions too.
Yeah.
Put a post-it on top.
Next week, you guys leave, you want to take a copy of that? You guys.
Sure. Do you mind, I have a question for you. When it says right here, it says the application of Hello Good Pie in this case to develop and use the, what are we supposed to put here as described in the I just wanna make sure it's not up there.
No, I hear you.
And maybe Terry's leaving it in your hands, and so if someone says, oh yeah, what happened there?
Yeah, I'll ask you.
Alright, thank you.
Septic system.
Alright,
It's 140. Right. Anything under.
and no other specific zoning.
It's that close.
So we didn't put any project conditions of approval, we have none of the projects. You're right, for the checklist being completed, right? And so if we wanna say something like C conditions for completeness, checklist, that would be. So I don't need this, this is the original. If I get what I know. Should hand this to you along with this supplement from,
One question for you. Like right here, where nothing's been written.
Still.
Be smart, line through it, so that nobody comes back in the water.
Sure. Good idea.
In the threshold.
Oh wait, I'm already giving him, but yeah, we can do that.
But they have different.
Oh wait, this
criteria
is-
for different
I just wrote it.
units under 200 feet. Well, that's how you.
That's what we just went through. Yeah, yes, yeah, that way, nothing can come in after the fact.
Right, good point, thank you, good point. Okay,
Yeah, there's different.
Not that it's ever happened before.
yeah,
But
I know.
and the geological assessment. There's some other things too.
Okay,
I'll follow up.
all right, thanks, everybody, that was great to be able to get through it. Thank you for your patience, thank you for your application, and getting through this. It's a multi-stage process with the review first, like we went through with you. Where there are gaps, we give that opportunity to show you where we need to have some things filled in so we can be complete. Then go through the findings of fact after it's considered complete.
Good process.
But we try, and,
Well, I learned a lot
yeah,
about the town of Belgrade and your ordinances and things like that. I did, for sure.
well, I hope it's working for all, that's the goal. It's working for everybody. It's,
That's why they pay us the big bucks.
yeah. So thank you, everybody, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Do we need something from Nick?
I think is he gonna copy something for you, I believe, correct? So after you get what you get from the town of Belgrade, you probably proceed with the purchase, and then be able to say, okay, now we got that, to then apply for the DOT thing, and then we'll be getting the information from you about the DOT. Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
that's,
guys for coming out.
yes, thank you very much. So we'll be expecting to hear back from you about the DOT
Absolutely.
stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've got blueberry pie slices right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, are you open tomorrow morning early?
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
What time?
7 o'clock.
7?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
So,
I'll try.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
It's
night.
down a little later, you go down to have a gyro, and then on the way up, have
Yeah.
the dessert.
I know.
There you go. You've got a good
I
plan.
know.
Good night.
Good night. I was supposed to be at work at 8, so. It's hard.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh, Colin's sick.
Yeah, I know.
Have the pie driving in, you know,
Yeah.
still on your pants.
Yeah, I know, really, on my white shirt. Right?
We
Let's
got
see.
no minutes.
We have no minutes. Does the board feel okay that we postpone our wetland discussion? It would be good to
Well,
have,
seems out the two that's really involved in it.
yeah, it'd be good to have Rich here for it, but one of the key things that Rich talked about, in his email, and you probably all have seen this, but, he met with Keel Kemper from IFNW, and he said, according to Keel, it is worthy of resource protection zoning, even if we can't do so to protect on the portion south of the tracks. And the ratings are based on field visits by Keel's office this past spring. That's probably the take-home message on this case, is that piece. I guess that would all be, we can't do it on the portion south of the tracks, but north, it sounds like the answer is yes. Good or bad, that's what it is. So,
It is what it is.
yeah, so if the board does not mind, we can take this up at the next meeting, when, hopefully if Rich and George can be back here, in particular Rich, because he's quite familiar with this type of stuff. that he's
I've
done.
got a question.
Yeah.
The wetland discussion, it encompasses other areas in town within the wetland area, just this one?
It's really specific about resource protection and about this specific area, that area down, it would be, behind Hammond Lumber, right, off in the Willy Wags back up in there. When you go up Belgrade Stream, there's an area. Craig, I believe, I don't wanna speak for you, but did you make it on canoe? No.
No,
Oh,
Richard did.
Rich did.
Okay.
And he spoke and that he was gonna recommend not making Kevin Hawes as part of it.
right.
So I didn't get a chance to go up there, because at that point,
He didn't know about it, but what they've been doing is we wanna take some of the stuff out of one section and do something else, and there was 3 landowners involved in it. Kevin Haas is one of them. And after Richard went down, he figures that one of them really shouldn't be in it. The land appeared wet only because the culvert on the railroad track is plugged. So, he went down and took a look at it, but he wanted to go back, which is why we might as well wait till he comes back and,
So the idea to take it out?
yeah.
Make the bill?
well, there was one big section, now it's half of that. So what's north is still gonna stay in it,
Okay,
but what's south isn't gonna be part of it.
oh, okay. So prior to that, so currently it's not buildable at all, or is it?
What's gonna stay in it probably isn't buildable, but what was in question was Kevin's. And that was more of a solid piece of land, not wetland.
Yep, yeah, cause each of the landowners had been notified, thank you, Nick, for doing that. And Kevin showed up, so we just wanted to make sure we had some, information we could convey to the landowner.
Yeah.
Any of the landowners impacted by this, but in this case, it was Kevin. So, okay. Nick, anything from the town that we need to be aware of at this time? No. Pete, it's nice to see you back in town. Thanks for taking time to join the board again. It's good to have you.
Has everybody noticed the name of the medical marijuana business has changed?
Oh, wait, over, medical marijuana, that's over here? No, I didn't notice. What was it before?
Out of the franchise, now it owns it, it's statewide.
Oh, so they either sold to them,
The name has changed on the building,
or,
because there's another one in Lewiston, there's one in Auburn,
really?
a couple in Portland.
Or maybe they became,
Oh, it's changed anyway. And then now something about walk-ins or something.
sure, if you've got a card, you can go in, yeah. So,
For CBD oil, what I'm saying, you don't even need a card.
right, cause there's no of the other stuff in it.
Did you hear about the session coming up in Saco about the new medical marijuana laws that the state just established?
Yeah,
Did you get the email on that?
yeah.
Okay. I've signed up already for that, so I'm gonna be going for that.
That'd be good to go.
I had a question on, for shoreline, shoreline zoning law change, so have more applicants and people coming in and
It's been slow.
Or they don't, or what?
I would say it's been really quite slow, really, in terms of the number of applications coming in the shoreline zone. So we haven't had many questions about how adaptations or changes to the shoreline zoning ordinance have applied to those particular permits. There might have been 1 or 2 that there's something that's come up, but not many so far. But I expect that we'll get more, you know.
We had one gentleman that was in before the people voted on it, remember? He was questioning what he could do, and he waited.
not.
He came right in as soon as it was approved, so, yeah, he did it the right way.
So Nick, nothing else from you? Anybody else have anything? Can we get out of here? It's just about on time, 9:02. Call it a night. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Oh, that boat storage, the posts they put in the field, they were crooked, weren't they?
What's that?
Can it back,
Oh,
boat storage?
yeah.
Some of those 2x4s are really bent over.
Well, they did that to try to push them back.
Yeah,
But that's not gonna work.